Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Chanak Patel. I'm a general physician, and today I'll be talking on a topic how you approach to a patient with arthritis. I'm not an orthopedician, neither I am a rheumatologist, but still I'm a student. I'm learning lot of things. So whatever knowledge I've gathered, I would like to share with you. So today we'll be talking about a topic we call as arthritis and how you approach, how you make the diagnosis, what are the common arthritis you come across in your everyday practice, and it will help you a lot to identify very easily even with minimal investigations. So we'll be talking under the heading definition, classification, etiology, and then we'll be dealing with how you approach, then what investigation you do. And treatment and complication I'll be dealing in a separate part 2. So today we'll be dealing with part 1, which will include definition, classification, etiology, how you approach, and investigations. Now there is one term what we call as arthralgia. The meaning of arthralgia is pain in joint. It does not include inflammation of joint. And classical example of arthralgia what you will come across is you must have also had a viral fever once in your lifetime. When you get a viral fever, you get a severe joint pain. You don't have an inflammation. That is classical arthralgia. Another condition very commonly you will come across in your everyday practice is osteoarthritis. Yes, in that particular there is a little amount of what we call as an inflammation, but not infection. And another condition we come across is chikungunya, where you get lot of joint pain. You may not have findings of inflammation. That is arthralgia. While arthritis means inflammation of joint, and that includes swelling. So you will have a swelling, you will have a warmness, you will have a redness, we call erythema, you will have a pain and local tenderness, and because of that you will have a disturbances in function of that joint, or we call loss of joint functions. So when you get all these 5 findings together, we call these are the signs of inflammation. So there is a difference between this is only pain, this is pain with inflammation, signs of inflammation. Now, if that inflammation signs remains for more than 6 weeks, we usually label that as a chronic. While if it is for few days to a week, we call that as an acute arthritis. Now basically there are 3 types of joints. One we call synarthrosis, amphiarthrosis, and diarthrosis. Synarthrosis is seen in skull. Those we call as the suture lines. While amphi is classical example is pubic symphysis, where there is a fibrocartilaginous union. So there is a cartilage and there is a fibrous tissue which is making a union. And lower third of the sacroiliac joints. These are amphiarthritis. We are going to talk of this particular group. Hardly very few conditions will involve this pubic symphysis and sacroiliac joints. So we will not be discussing in detail regarding this, we will be discussing in this. But we will show you this is synarthrosis in the skull cavity. So you will see that that particular is affected in case of a raised intracranial pressure and hydrocephalus. This joint is amphiarthrosis, which will be very commonly involved because of a traumatic injury in adult. And there is another disease we call as a costochondritis. You can have an involvement of this joint. While we talk about this is one bone, this is second bone, and in between these two bones there is a joint space, and this bone is covered by a material we call as a cartilage, and there is a lining we call as a synovial membrane. Whenever this joint is involved, we call as diarthrosis. Now, we always mention some terms. Depending upon the number of involvement of joints, we call it a monoarthritis. If it is more than 5, we call polyarthritis. And if it is more than 1 but less than 5, we call oligo or we call polyarthritis. Depending upon the etiology, we call bacterial, viral, tubercular, gouty, syphilitic, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. These are some of the words which we utilized depending upon the etiology. Osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, rheumatic fever, viral arthritis, tubercular arthritis, gouty arthritis, syphilitic, bacterial, or we call pyogenic. Now, depending upon the inflammation present or not present, inflammatory, non-inflammatory. And if you compare with pyogenic, so pyogenic, non-pyogenic. If there is a trauma, we call traumatic arthritis or hemarthrosis, and non-traumatic arthritis. This bacterial infective etiology will be non-traumatic. Okay. Now, in trauma, even without awareness of a traumatic injury, when you get an hemarthrosis, it is called spontaneous hemarthrosis, and when there is a clear-cut trauma, then we call traumatic hemarthrosis. On duration wise, if it is in hours, we call it an acute. More than 6 weeks, we call it a chronic. Usually these are the two common words which are utilized. Some people puts another word we call as a subacute, means it is little longer duration than acute, but less than 6 weeks. Then we call that as a subacute. If only one joint is involved, usually it is asymmetrical. When multiple joints are involved, but it does not involve the identical joints on opposite side, then it is still asymmetrical. Say left side knee, right side elbow, left side wrist, asymmetrical. But symmetrical, both knees, both wrist, both elbow, symmetrical. If you get a central joint involvement, means the involvement of the spine, we call axial. And when you get the involvement of the joints in the limbs, we call peripheral. These are the different terms which are being utilized, because some disease will have involvement of peculiar joints involvement. We'll be dealing in detail regarding all those things. So do remember all this different terminology which are being utilized. Now this is one very important slide to put them together. Any person who gets a pain around the joint, maybe because of joint or because of surrounding structures like tendons, muscles, then we call that as a musculoskeletal pain. So any person who gets a musculoskeletal pain can be because of non-articular, can be because of articular. Non-articular can be inflammatory, non-inflammatory. In inflammatory, there is one condition we call as a bursitis or tendinitis. Involvement of bursa, involvement of the tendon. This can be bacterial, viral. And there is one condition called as a polymyalgia rheumatica. So this is inflammatory condition. While non-inflammatory condition is because of trauma, fracture, fibromyalgia, and reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So these are non-articular condition, but this does not involve joint. This is extra-articular or we call it a non-articular. And this should be differentiated from articular variety. So by a clinical examination, you will be able to identify it is a non-articular or a articular. We'll be dealing in the little differences between the two as we come across. Now among articular, depending upon the number of joint involvement. So monoarticular, polyarticular. Even if more than one joint is involved but less than 5 joints, we call that as oligo or mono. or we also use the word pauci, P-A-U-C-I, pauci articular. While more than 4, usually we say that more than 5, we call it a polyarticular. Now both of this can be acute onset, chronic onset. Polyarticular can be also acute onset, chronic onset. And if we add one more things, means mono, acute. And acute can be non-inflammatory, inflammatory. So three things we are combining together. Monoarticular, acute in onset, non-inflammatory, inflammatory. So if we combine this together, so acute, non-inflammatory, monoarticular are meniscus tear, osteoarthritis. This will be the most common you will see in your everyday practice, and commonest joint involved is the knee joint. Or you can have a reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So this will be acute in onset, single joint involvement or one or two joint involvement, and non-inflammatory etiology. You will see this more common, and second common will be meniscus tear because of the traumatic damage, trauma. So that will be that particular group, meniscus tear. While inflammatory group, most common monoarticular and acute in onset, infective etiology, we call pyogenic arthritis, or maybe even viral arthritis, gout, pseudo gout, reactive arthritis, and there is one organism which can also produce, that is chlamydia arthritis. And among infection, one of the most common is gonococcal arthritis. So do keep this thing in mind. So again I am repeating, monoarthritis or oligoarthritis, acute in onset and inflammatory. These three means inflammatory, acute and mono, infective, gout, pseudo gout, reactive arthritis, and once in a while chlamydia. While if it is chronic in onset and non-inflammatory, osteoarthritis again comes topmost on the list. And among those, the most common is knee. Once in a while, it can be hip joint involvement. Then there is another we call as osteonecrosis, neuropathic arthritis, or we call Charcot's arthritis, hemochromatosis, or another pigmentary. Out of these, the osteoarthritis stands topmost on the list. While mono, chronic and inflammatory will be psoriatic, spondyloarthropathy, juvenile and indolent infectious arthritis. Particularly we can put tubercular arthritis. So this will be mono, chronic and inflammatory. So combining three parts, acute or chronic, mono or poly, and inflammatory or non-inflammatory. So this slide tells you acute mono, non-inflammatory, inflammatory, chronic mono, inflammatory, non-inflammatory. Same way in a poly, acute and inflammatory, poly, acute and non-inflammatory. So in a poly, acute and non-inflammatory is hemoglobinopathies and amyloid arthropathies. So hemoglobinopathies producing a non-inflammatory variety or amyloid variety producing. This is absolutely rare, very, very rare, not very common. Why? Acute, poly and inflammatory group, viral arthritis, serum sickness, drug induced, and early onset of connective tissue disorders, rheumatic fever, etc. This will be all this entire group. So do keep it in mind that these are some of the conditions which you can see in your everyday practice, and out of this the most common we see across is viral arthritis. So do keep this in mind. And once in a while you will see drug induced arthritis. A person has taken certain drugs, say like procainamide, Isonex, and they can come to you with a arthritis which can be acute in onset and poly. So this will be that group. What we come across more common is chronic variety. Non-inflammatory variety can be osteoarthritis, because there you can have 2 or 3 joints involved or more than 5 joints involved, like DIP joints, distal interphalangeal joints, proximal interphalangeal joints, etc. And this will be that particular group which can produce multiple joints. But by and large, in osteoarthritis, you come across one or two joints. That is, knee joint is the most common involvement. And sometimes knee joint can be involved along with DIP and PIP joints. Then it becomes polyarticular, chronic, and non-inflammatory. While most common cause of poly, chronic, and inflammatory group is rheumatoid arthritis and the allied groups. And in that allied groups, polyarthritis nodosa, then multiple connective tissue disorders, SLE, scleroderma, polyarticular juvenile arthritis, Still's disease. Out of this, the rheumatoid arthritis scores topmost on the list. So try to remember this particular group. So go through again and again this. If you utilize this, almost you can easily differentiate some of the most common conditions. This is little simplified, only 2 points are taken. Acute and mono, acute and poly, chronic and mono, and chronic and poly. But this is a better way because this is using a third criteria, what we call as inflammatory and non-inflammatory. In this particular, inflammatory and non-inflammatory are not divided. So this you can utilize for early differentiation, but a better differentiation is by this method. So always try to use number of joints, acute or chronic, inflammatory or non-inflammatory. If you combine these three things together, almost majority of the differential diagnosis comes across. So at your leisure time, again go through this. This is including only two, whether acute or chronic, mono or poly. So try to go through those particular. This is another way of classifying, that first you classify inflammatory, non-inflammatory. In a non-inflammatory only one comes, that is osteo. And then you try to differentiate whether it is mono or poly. And already we have already told you that this is non-inflammatory, so it is inflammatory, non-inflammatory. And by and large, osteoarthritis is always chronic. It is rarely acute. Rarely acute. So if you remove those two things, straightforward you can make a diagnosis that non-inflammatory variety, usually mono, occasionally poly, is osteoarthritis, while inflammatory is usually acute, sometimes chronic, and in that you divide further depending upon the investigation, seropositive, seronegative, after synovial fluid aspiration, infective etiology, non-infective etiology, and crystal induced. So this will be helpful to identify the etiology sites and differentiate the etiology sites. So in a seropositive means if you get a RA positive, that will be rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, scleroderma, vasculitis, Sjogren's syndromes, Still's disease, etc. All those conditions are seropositive. So whenever you get a RA positive, it is in favor of rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, scleroderma, vasculitis groups, Sjogren's, Still's disease, those groups. While in seronegative means RA test is negative, but in this particular group you might get HLA-B27 positive. We call spondylitis group of ankylosing spondylitis group, which can be ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, reactive arthritis, arthritis associated with inflammatory bowel disease, etc. So this will be a big group which we call as a seronegative group. So after doing an investigation, you can differentiate these two further apart from a clinical examination. In this seronegative group, usually you will have a very commonly involvement of the axial joints, we call as a spine, plus maybe peripheral involvement, and very commonly they will have extra articular involvement like eye, kidney, lungs, oral cavity, etc. Nails, skin, all those may be involved. While in case of a rheumatoid arthritis, you can have an extra articular involvement which will be very common again in rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, scleroderma, vasculitis, Sjogren syndrome. In all these conditions, apart from joint involvement, you can have an extra articular involvement. While in case of an osteoarthritis, you don't come across any extra articular involvement. In other words, if someone comes to you with an extra articular involvement along with joint involvement, do suspect seropositive or seronegative groups. In infections, it will be usually monoarticular, very rarely polyarticular. And by and large, the most common cause of infectious etiology is bacterial, and second common is viral. And among bacterial, gonococcal, staphylococci, streptococci. These three will be topmost on the list. And in case of nosocomial infections, usually introduction of bacteria from outside. It can be odd organism like E. coli, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, etc. So we'll be going through all this in a part 2, not in part 1. So these are the conditions. And if it is because of the crystal induced, there are a lot of crystals, and one of the most common crystal is sodium monourate. So we call uric acid crystals. And you, in a case of a gout, it can be other crystals, pyrophosphate crystals. So that will be a classification. So again, I'm showing you all the 3 slides. This is one way of classifying: acute, chronic, mono, poly, inflammatory, non-inflammatory combination. And this is acute, chronic, combining with mono and poly. And this is inflammatory, non-inflammatory, combining with diagnostic investigation. This is by synovial fluid examination. This is by blood examination. Seropositive, seronegative. So do remember this. All this will help you to differentiate and classify what type of joint involvement person is having. This is the heading of etiological classification, what we have already given you. In an inflammatory variety because of infection, bacterial we call as aseptic, and the most common organism I have already told you, gonococcal. Second common, staphylococci, streptococci. In case of infective endocarditis, very rarely syphilitic, and usually syphilitic is a chronic, and we call that particular secondary to. Usually it is in a stage 2, stage 3, not in primary stage. Gonococcal is the most common bacterial infections. Tuberculosis will usually produce chronic and by and large mono or posse articular, and the commonest joint involved is a hip joint. Second common involvement is a spine, we call pot spine. Another common is viral, usually it is a polyarticular, and it will not be showing you presence of bacteria in a synovial fluid, and that will be the way you try to differentiate viral from bacterial. In a inflammatory variety, because inflammatory variety will be infectious, non-infectious. In that inflammatory variety, there will be a second big group we call, apart from infections, which produces inflammation, we call crystal induced, that is gout, pseudo gout. These two will come in that particular group. And other groups we call, which are because of a immune mediated, we call rheumatic fever, rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, vasculitis group, periarthritis nodosa, SLE. Then this will be the group which we call as a seronegative groups, that is psoriatic arthritis, spondylitis, reactive arthritis, spondyloarthritis, then associated with enteric disorders, etc. So this will be all those groups. And now, apart from inflammatory, second big group, non-inflammatory group, And in a non-inflammatory group, only one which will come most common is osteoarthritis. And second, which can produce sometimes, which is ideally non-inflammatory, but later on it can become inflammatory. We call it a spontaneous hemarthrosis or traumatic hemarthrosis. This blood can be invaded by a bacteria, secondary bacterial infections, and then it will be bacterial or we call pyogenic arthritis. So osteoarthritis will be a classical example of a non-inflammatory, but initially a traumatic or a spontaneous hemarthrosis. Traumatic is because of an injury while and very common in a what a person who is a player, maybe a cricket player or maybe a tennis player, etc., which get a traumatic injury and they get damage to the cruciate ligaments or to the what we call as a cartilage, meniscus, etc. So that is because of a traumatic injury or even because of a fall or a roadside accidental injuries, while spontaneous because of a trivial trauma which a person is not even aware of it, and person who has got coagulative disorders, particularly congenital coagulative disorders, they can develop a hemarthrosis. So those are called spontaneous hemarthrosis. Classical example of spontaneous hemarthrosis is hemophilia, and the most common joint which is involved is a knee joint. So this will be non-inflammatory groups. But sometimes in osteoarthritis you get only arthralgia. Chikungunya you get arthralgia, and even in viral fever you get arthralgia. But still, in all these three, there is involvement of the joint, and we put osteoarthritis in non-inflammatory group, chikungunya and viral in infective etiology group. But in those group, we do not get more amount of arthritis. We get more of arthralgia rather than arthritis. There is a very odd group we call as a miscellaneous, which does not fit with a non-inflammatory or inflammatory group, where because of vascular damage, we call necrosis of the bone, we call osteonecrosis, and classical example of that is we call avascular necrosis of head of femur, and the most common cause of that particular condition is sickle cell, idiopathic, and once in a while trauma also. So in that particular group you can get avascular necrosis of head of femur, and some of the drugs, particularly steroid, can also produce avascular necrosis of head of femur, and even drugs like steroid can produce damage to the bone and can produce damage to the joints. And when you can't identify and put them into inflammatory, non-inflammatory groups, and again in inflammatory infection and inflammation, you put them into a group we call as the idiopathic groups. So try to identify all these different conditions. So this will be the way you try to identify the basic etiology. Among the crystals, you can see that monosodium urate crystals will be gout. Calcium pyrophosphate dihydrate crystals, short form it is called CPPD, that will be pseudo gout. There are other crystals like calcium carbonate, hydroxyapatite, octacalcium phosphate, tricalcium phosphate. These are other groups. Calcium oxalate can be one of the another cholesterol crystal, lipids, cryoglobin, charcoal laden crystals, and sometimes even steroids. This can, but out of these two are the most common. These are rare. These are very, very rare. But once in a while you can come across this group also. So after doing a synovial fluid examination, then only you will be able to identify this particular group, because under a microscope you will, if you can identify these crystals, you will label that this is calcium oxalate arthritis, or this is cholesterol arthritis, or it is a charcoal laden crystal arthritis, or eosinophilic arthritis, etc. So these are the words they utilize. Now according to the age, in children the most common etiology is juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which is accounting for the 58%. Second common is SLE, and then comes rheumatic fever. So these three will be accounting for nearly 80 to 90%. 80 to 90%. Rare vasculitis, dermatomyositis. While in adult, you can see the 50% of those are osteo, 20% is traumatic, and see the percentage of rheumatoid arthritis, only 5 to 10%, and gout is only 1 to 2%. So the commonest is osteoarthritis in adult or in an old age group we call. Second common is traumatic, third common is RA, and fourth is gout. While here, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, SLE followed by rheumatic fever. So age will also help you to differentiate which arthritis is very, very common. If you make the diagnosis of osteoarthritis in children, it is absolutely idiocy. And if you make the diagnosis of rheumatic fever in an adult, it is absolutely rare because rheumatic fever can not occur in an old age group or in an adult groups. So do remember there are some diseases which cannot occur at a particular age. So remember those. Now when you approach to a person, you ask certain questions. So we call history, symptomatology, joint examination. And in a history we ask duration. In examination, so history and examination will include, you will try to identify the duration, number of joints, symmetrical or not symmetrical or we call asymmetrical, location, which joints are involved, recurrence, relapse or migratory, traumatic or spontaneous. In history, what are the associated symptoms and signs? In examination, you try to find out the extra-articular symptoms and signs. In history, you try to look at the age, history of drugs, certain diets, family history, past history, personal history, etc. So you try to take a very good history, have a good examination and evaluate for all these things, and you will be benefited to come to the nearmost diagnosis. Sometimes you may not require even investigation, and investigations are necessary to confirm the diagnosis rather than to initiate the diagnosis. So history will include symptoms and examinations. In step 1, always differentiate arthritis from non-articular. So articular and non-articular. And again in that, arthritis and arthralgia. You try to differentiate first. So in step 1, first thing is you have to differentiate articular, non-articular. And if it is articular, it is arthritis or arthralgia. So that should be the first thing. Second step, if it is arthritis, it is inflammatory or non-inflammatory. Means we call infectious or non-infectious. Try to identify that. Usually in a non-infectious, very commonly it is arthralgia. In step 3, there are many. History wise, acute or chronic, that is onset. Recurrent, relapse or migratory. So acute, chronic, it is recurrent, there is a relapse or there is a migratory variety. It is a monoarticular or polyarticular. Mono and poly are put into the same group. Less than 5, mono or poly. It is a traumatic or non-traumatic. This is again from a history and examination. It is symmetrical, asymmetrical. Mono is always asymmetrical. Poly may be symmetrical, may be asymmetrical. Location or pattern of distribution, which is a very, very important thing to differentiate good number of conditions. After doing all this, you will have to put a differential diagnosis. First possibility, say rheumatoid arthritis. Second possibility, so and so. Or first possibility, osteoarthritis. And then in step 4, you go for what we call as associated features, which will help you to differentiate further. And associated features are most common in what we call as inflammatory groups. And again in inflammatory group, seropositive and seronegative will be associated with lot of associated features. And they are extra-articular features. Extra-articular features. Try to look for all those findings. And in associated features like which are not related to extra-articular or articular, but it is symptoms like fever, loose motion, vomiting, etc. Those are also included in associated features. And try to look for extra-articular signs like skin, eye, lung, GI tract. or oral, kidney, genital organs, nails, etc. There are many extra-articular features. And then last comes what we call as a step 5 is investigation, where it includes blood, radiology, that is which joint is involved, and you can have a radiological features of that joint, and synovial fluid examination is most beneficial in to ruling out infective etiology from non-infective etiology, and also it will help you to identify crystal induced arthritis. So to identify a crystals also you will need a synovial fluid examination, and in case of an infective pathophysiology it will also help you to identify which organism is responsible for that infective etiology. Also, it will help to differentiate pyogenic from tubercular and viral. So, this will be the importance of doing a synovial fluid examination and sending it for what we call as a cellular study, crystal study, and what we call as culture. 3C, cell, crystal, and culture, and antibiotic sensitivity. And radiologically, you will have to find out what type of damage has occurred in a joint, and looking at the type of the damage also sometimes you can differentiate osteoarthritis from rheumatoid arthritis, gout you can differentiate osteonecrosis, etc. It is also very helpful, and blood investigation is helpful to rule out seropositive, seronegative, to rule out crystal arthritis by doing a uric acid level in blood, etc. So that is the importance of doing blood, X-ray and synovial fluid examinations. Yes. Further, it can be helped by doing an ultrasound. Ultrasound is a non-invasive technique. So that can also help you sometime to differentiate traumatic from non-traumatic etiology. CT, MRI is very helpful to mainly to differentiate the type of a damage which has occurred in the joint, and extra-articular pathophysiology can be differentiated very easily by a CT or MRI, and also it will help you to identify the severity of the damage, traumatic, non-traumatic, etc. Synovial biopsy is sometimes very helpful in some of the condition, particularly inflammatory pathophysiology, and very rarely a bone scan can be helpful to differentiate malignant variety. And then comes, after making all those, final diagnosis is made, then you decide regarding a treatment. Whenever the joint is involved, person needs physiotherapy to prevent deformities and to prevent what we call as fibrosis in a joint. You should have a regular follow-up in a disease which is a chronic in onset and chronic in progress, which is slowly progressive or which takes a very long time for recovery, and you should look for what we call as a complication and try to treat those complications. So this will be the entire way you approach to a person. In an extra-articular signs and symptoms, you can have a constitutional symptoms like fever, body ache, etc. You can have a skin rash, you can have a lymphadenopathy, skin manifestation, mucus manifestation, ocular, nail involvement, Raynaud's phenomena, and serositis like pleura, pericardium, etc. involvement. So you can have involvement, and this is a diagram showing you. You can have involvement of the pleura, lymph nodes, kidney, GI tract involvement, bony structures, bone marrow can be involved, nervous system can be involved. In that you can have a peripheral nerves involvement. So you can have involvement of that mononeuritis multiplex. Then eye involvement like keratoconjunctivitis, scleritis, uveitis, etc. Pericarditis, pericardial effusions. Lung, you can have interstitial fibrosis, nodular appearance, effusions. Muscles, you can have a wasting of the muscles. Skin, you can have a ulceration, rashes, etc. This is lot of inflammation. So this is, you can compare the two. You can do a metacarpal squeeze and find out the tenderness, metatarsal squeeze and you can find out the tenderness. You can see an extra-articular involvement in the form of a nail changes, enanthitis, that is involvement of the tendons. You can aspirate and try to identify and differentiate crystal arthritis from a infective pathophysiology. All those can be done. There are some red flag signs when you are examining, and if the person has got some findings, it is very much in favor of those particular etiology. Look for signs of what we call as inflammation, erythema, warm, swelling, and decreased range of movement and local tenderness. If there is a fever with acute joint pain, more in favor of pyogenic. Acute joint pain with sexually active young adults, gonococcal. Skin breaks with signs of cellulitis, again pyogenic. Underlying bleeding disorders, or person is on an anticoagulants, hemarthrosis. Systemic or extra-articular symptoms, very frequently in a seronegative or seropositive groups of arthritis. Weight loss, keep it in mind, tuberculosis, malignancy. Night pains, single joint involvement, again pyogenic arthritis. Neurological symptoms and signs, Charcot joint. So do remember that. Now we are going to differentiate between articular and non-articular, or we call periarticular or extra-articular. Anatomically, you know that in articular variety, you will have involvement of cartilage, capsules, swelling, and synovial membrane will be involved. While if you get involvement of the structure outside the joint, like tendon, bursa, ligaments, muscle, bone, and there is a localized swelling, it is more in favor of an extra-articular. The most important thing, only local tenderness over one spot, over tendon, over bursa, over ligament, over bone, and there is a localized swelling which is tender. It is more in favor of an extra-articular. So do keep it in mind. Now painful sites. Already we have told you this is a diffuse, so there will be generalized tenderness all over the joint. Very rarely localized tenderness in an articular variety. While here, usually pain is a very spot tenderness, or sometimes we call it a local tenderness, and it is a focal point. On movements, active and passive, in all planes movement, the pain will be present. So any movement of the joints, whether active or passive, and in all direction, flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, in all those directions, the person will get a pain. While here, the pain will be only when one specific muscle or one specific tendon is moved, or one specific ligament moves. So it is only in one direction and one plane only. So very important, local tenderness and pain on movement in only one direction is more in favor of an extra-articular, or we call periarticular. Always try to remember. And if there is a generalized swelling in the joint, it is the most common cause for articular variety. While if there is a big swelling, it is less in favor of an extra-articular. So try to remember this particular. So if there is a synovial fluid swelling, it is more in favor of an articular and less in favor of extra-articular. So this is a step one. You have to differentiate joint involvement from extra-articular, or we call as a non-articular or periarticular. Now, second point, you have to differentiate between inflammatory variety and non-inflammatory variety. So this is a very useful to differentiate two most common joint involvement you will see in your everyday practice. One is rheumatoid arthritis and one is osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is a non-inflammatory, rheumatoid arthritis is inflammatory. Morning stiffness will be longer. We say that more than half an hour in case of rheumatoid, while it will be less in case of osteoarthritis. Fatigue is more common in an inflammatory, that is rheumatoid arthritis, rather than in case of osteoarthritis. on activity, as person starts doing an activity, there is an improvement in the symptoms. While in osteoarthritis, on walking, on climbing, on movements, it worsens. Rest. In case of rheumatoid arthritis, the person will say that my pain has improved, my symptoms has improved. No, it is worsening in case of rheumatoid arthritis. But if the person says that by taking a rest, my all symptoms has almost disappeared or has become less, it is in favor of osteoarthritis. Systemic manifestation, like what we call as an extra-articular manifestation in the form of a skin, nail, eye, etc., is most common in RA, and it is never present in case of osteoarthritis. Inflammatory markers like ESR and CRP will be elevated in rheumatoid, will be absent or will be normal in case of osteoarthritis. If you give a steroid, there is a dramatic improvement in rheumatoid arthritis. Why? There will be mild effect because steroid also helps to reduce your pain. So partial effect may be seen, or sometimes we say no effect in case of osteoarthritis. But don't ever try steroid in case of an osteoarthritis. And we say that what are the examples of inflammatory variety? Classical example is rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, scleroderma, vasculitis, pyogenic, reactive arthritis, seronegative group, that is ankylosing spondylitis, inflammatory bowel disorders, sarcoidosis, etc. These are all that group, but the most common is RA. While in case of a non-inflammatory, classical example is osteoarthritis. You can put traumatic osteonecrosis. This can come as a second possibility. And neuropathic joint, or we call Charcot joint, is another group which can come. We call as a neuropathic joint. Very rarely hemochromatosis and endocrine disorders that can also produce sometimes non-inflammatory arthritis. But main which you will come across in your everyday practice is osteoarthritis. So try to remember this difference between inflammatory variety, non-inflammatory variety, or we call RA and OA. That is step 2. Now this is the same thing given a little different type of differentiation, that what time of the day person gets a pain. In RA, usually it is early morning, while this is during a daytime. Swelling is very common in case of inflammatory. Rather here there is a bony pain or bony swelling is common in case of a non-inflammatory, or we call it osteoarthritis. Erythema will be very common in inflammatory, while here erythema is always absent, warmness is always absent, while this is usually present. Early morning stiffness more than 30 minutes, while here it is less than 30 minutes. Systemic features we already mentioned are very common in RA. It is always absent in case of OA. Inflammatory markers are present in case of RA. It is absent. Synovial fluid will show the presence of what we call as a WBC, will be more in number, will be always less in number. Examples we already given: RA, SLE, septic arthritis, gout will be common in inflammatory variety, while in a non-inflammatory variety, osteoarthritis, and we call it the osteonecrosis, that is avascular necrosis of head of femur. And person very commonly complains of fatigue, that is more common in RA and rare or less in case of a non-inflammatory. So this is another difference. This is another difference. Go through at your leisure time. RA can be at any age. Osteoarthritis is usually in a middle and old age group. Onset is usually little faster in case of a rheumatoid. This is over a period of years. Distribution wise, this is usually in a small joints, polyarticular, symmetrical. Polyarticular, symmetrical, while this is usually asymmetrical monoarthritis, and in a later stage can be polyarticular or polyarthritis. Usually small joints may be involved, that is DIP joints. Joints which are affected is commonly metacarpophalangeal joints and PIP joints, proximal joints, while these are distal joints, weight bearing joints. knee and hip are very commonly involved as far as the big joints are concerned. We have already told you that duration of a morning stiffness is more than 30 minutes. This is less than 30 minutes. Symptoms, associated symptoms and extra-articular findings are very common here. They are not seen in a osteoarthritis. This is another difference. Almost whatever we have mentioned is given here. You can go through your leisure times. Now we come to what we call as a step 3. Now this is the most important part in approaching to a person. Always try to differentiate from a history, whether it is acute or chronic. So in a case of an acute, it is few days to a week, but less than a 6 week. If person in between the episode having almost asymptomatic and comes back, either it is relapse or we call recurrent. On treatment, if a person develops a symptom signs again, it is relapse. But even without the treatment, a person is asymptomatic and it comes back again, it is recurrent. And once in a while, you will see a variety we call as a migratory variety, which is showing you that gradually it shifts from one joint to another joint. Classical, you will see in a case of a rheumatic fever. From history and examination, you will be able to differentiate mono or poly, and mono and pos. From a history, traumatic and non-traumatic, easily you will be able to differentiate. Yes, on examination it is symmetrical or asymmetrical from history and examination. And then from history, how it has started, acute or chronic, and from examination, you will be able to find out symmetrical or symmetrical and pattern of distribution. Combining all these together, you will be able to identify almost, you will come to the nearmost diagnosis. 90 to 99% of the time, you will come to the nearmost diagnosis. So depending on the number of the joints, we say that one joint mono, less than 5 but more than 1 posse or oligo, and more than 5 poly. So here this is classical example of poly, this is a classical example of mono. Single joint involved, mono. More than 5 joints involved, poly. Rheumatoid arthritis, gout. This slide I have already showed you before, so I don't have to repeat. So this combines mono and poly, combining with acute and chronic, and combining 3 things together, mono and poly, acute and chronic, inflammatory and non-inflammatory. So this is the best slide you must see again and again. Now what you do further? Suppose if the person comes to you with a acute involvement and primary care physician does a history and examination and clinical impression is a septic arthritis. Straightforward, you will go for synovial fluid aspiration. In that you will do a cell count, culture and crystal examination. And you will try to look for the bacteria by doing a gram stain. So this will be the first thing what you will do. So you will aspirate. Suppose you are not sure. Again you can refer to a specialist, have a joint aspiration and try to confirm the diagnosis of septic arthritis or differentiate septic arthritis from a crystal arthritis. Your alternative diagnosis is there. You are not 100% sure that it is pyogenic. Again in a crystal arthritis, you are suspecting crystal arthritis, joint aspiration is a must. So in all this condition, to differentiate septic from crystal arthritis, joint aspiration is a must. And if person gets relief of symptoms by a preliminary treatment, then you may wait and watch. And if required, on a history and examination, you are suspecting a infective etiology, like person has got fever, leukocyte count is very high, you've got a leukocytosis, there's a local warmness, local tenderness, swelling is there, then you must aspirate and rule out septic from non-septic, or we call it the crystal induced arthritis. That is the first stage. And in a case, a person who has got an asymmetrical involvement and there's a possibility of a RA, first go for a RA test or anti-CCP test and try to identify if joint swelling is more than 6 weeks, chronic, and there is a synovial swelling, then in that particular case, usually we don't require a joint aspiration because you can identify by other parameters. If there is a joint swelling which is more than 6 weeks, if answer is no, less than 6 weeks, then suspect crystal arthritis, reactive arthritis, chlamydia arthritis, viral arthritis, etc. And if there is a swelling, aspirate and try to rule out crystal arthritis. That is very, very easy to 100% confirm the diagnosis of crystal induced arthritis. While in a person who has got synovial involvement, joint swelling is there more than 6 weeks, and polyarticular, symmetrical, if answer is no, and if answer is yes, possibility of RA factor may be positive or anti-CCP antibody may be positive. If answer is no, then you can rule out other groups, we call it a seronegative groups. So look for RA or look for anti-CCP antibody, and if that is negative, then go for what we call as a seronegative groups, psoriatic arthritis, reactive arthritis, spondyloarthropathy, etc. Those groups, right? And if it is positive, it is more in favor of RA, and if it is RA positive, then look for RA factor titer, anti-CCP antibody, X-ray, look for the erosions, and try to identify the extra-articular findings. And in case of a doubt, you can also go for what we call as a HLA study, that is HLA-DRB1 will be positive, and try to identify the severity by doing HAQ score. That will be in case of a rheumatoid arthritis. And then if severity you have identified by this, if answer is yes, it is very severe, aggressive treatment because it is in a high risk group. If answer is less, no, it is slowly progressive, you can wait and watch, and you can decide regarding a treatment, that is we call as a DMRD. So try to go for that. This is what we have already told you. If it is acute, more in favor of rheumatic, septic, viral, traumatic, or crystal induced. If it is very chronic, long standing, tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, malignancy, osteoarthritis, SLE, periarthritis nodosa, Sjogren syndrome, Behcet syndrome, ankylosing spondylitis, that group. While if it is recurrent, rheumatoid arthritis can be recurrent, gout can be recurrent, hemophilia can be recurrent, JRA can be recurrent. Septic arthritis is not very common as far as recurrent is concerned. Once in a while it can be recurrent. And migratory variety, if you see, that will be seen. Sorry, here the spelling is wrong, so try to correct it. Even here, Sjogren spelling is little wrong. You can correct that spelling. So in a migratory variety, rheumatic fever will come. So that will, one joint will be involved. It starts getting improvement. The second joint will be involved by that time. So that is typical migratory variety. We'll be having another slide where we'll show you that migratory variety. Now here there is a combination of age, sex, and onset. So in a younger age group, you will have a SLE and reactive arthritis, very common. In a middle aged group, fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis. In an old age group, osteoarthritis. So if you look in this, in a very young person, SLE and RA. In a middle aged group, RA is very common. And in an old age group, osteoarthritis is more common. If you look in a male and female, in a female, RA is more common, less common in male, while spondyloarthritis is more common in male as compared to female. SLE is again more common in female as compared to male. So in a male, gout and spondyloarthritis, or we call as the ankylosing spondylitis, is more common in male, while rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, that is SLE, is more common in female. As far as acute onset is concerned, septic arthritis and gout are the most common, while slow onset, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis are there. In a chronic, most common cause of a chronic is osteoarthritis. Intermittent episodes is very common with crystal arthritis. Migratory variety, the only what you will see very common is rheumatic fever. Very, very rarely you will come across in a gonococcal and viral. While multiple permutation combination you can come across what we call as an additive, that is rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis. As far as the duration is concerned, acute and chronic wise, acute very common in infectious and crystal induced, that is these two groups. Septic and gout, that is acute onset, while chronic is all these groups. Chronic, non-inflammatory, that is osteoarthritis, inflammatory, that is RA, and non-articular joint fibromyalgia. So try to identify and utilize this age and sex involvement simultaneously, which usually is very easy, and you can suspect certain disease more common in male, certain disease more common in female, certain diseases are very common in young. I've already showed you one slide before at what age they are common. In that we have divided only two groups, younger individual and middle and old age individuals. So try to utilize that particular idea. This is pattern of involvement. Migratory or flitting joint pain, classical only in case of rheumatic fever, occasionally in case of gonococcal and viral. So once in a while in a gonococcal also you can get a flitting, and in case of a viral also you can have a flitting variety, or we call as a migratory variety. But very, very typical, young individual with migratory, first rule out rheumatic, second gonococcal, and third is viral. Additive variety, in addition to certain, you can have SLE and RA. So migratory variety, additive patterns, intermittent patterns, and recurrent pattern. In a recurrent, RA and gout, remember those two. So this is a pattern wise. Distribution wise, symmetrical, asymmetrical. So by and large we always say RA, SLE are usually symmetrical. Why? Asymmetrical will be very frequently in Ritus because it is very commonly mono. Psoriatic arthritis can be again mono and asymmetrical. Ankylosing spondylitis is again asymmetrical. So RA, here also you can put osteoarthritis, asymmetrical. That is very typical. As far as distribution of joints is concerned, peripheral joint is most common in again RA and SLE. Small joints are involved in RA and SLE. So if you remember together, symmetrical, peripheral and small joints, RA and SLE, combining together, which joints are involved? So if you look at these three combining together, symmetrical, peripheral and small joints, RA and SLE, while asymmetrical, axial and large joints involved, more common in what we call as the seronegative groups. These are all seronegative groups, Ritus, psoriatic, ankylosing spondylitis, etc. They are usually axial, asymmetrical and seronegative. So try to remember this way. So go for that. Location wise. Now another way, now we'll be going through one by one in location wise. First, metatarsophalangeal joints, or we call it the great toe. Gout, gout and gout. Don't forget a person who is player, who is kicking, because of a kick, he can get an injury to the great toe. And that is one of the common cause for what we call as a traumatic osteoarthritis. And that can involve metatarsophalangeal joint. And that is differential diagnosis for gout. Metacarpophalangeal joint and PIP joint, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE. Distal interphalangeal joint, osteoarthritis, or we call Herberdens nodes. That will be very common. And first, metacarpal joint, again in osteoarthritis. Once in a while in case of a psoriatic joints, because psoriatic joint is quite common in DIP area. Knee joint, mono, septic arthritis, pseudo gout, gout, traumatic, osteoarthritis, hemarthrosis. Out of all this, if you take, osteoarthritis comes most common, second common septic, third common gout, fourth you can put is traumatic and non-traumatic hemarthrosis. Ankle, only ankle involved, more common in gout. Second common cause osteoarthritis, third common septic and traumatic. Hip joint, the most common tuberculosis and avascular necrosis of head of femur. Wrist, RA, traumatic, rheumatic fever. Elbow, RA, traumatic, rheumatic fever. Shoulder joint, trauma, RA and osteoarthritis, quite common. So try to go through all this, repeat it again and again. You will be able to remember those things. Which joint, what is the commonest disease? TM joint, most common RA and second common trauma. Cervical spine, osteoarthritis, spondylitis and pot spine. Thoracic spine, pot spine and secondary metastasis. Lumbosacral spine, osteoarthritis and pot spine. Sacral joint involvement, osteoarthritis and spondylitis. This will be the pattern of involvement. And to separate out in a small pattern, upper extremity at the onset, RA and OA, more common. Lower extremity is the onset, reactive arthritis and gout, more common. Axial joint at the onset, osteoarthritis and ankylosing spondylitis. You can utilize all this permutation combination to differentiate different etiology of what we call as arthritis. And if I take now etiology and which joints are more common involved? Osteoarthritis, knee, shoulder and DIP joints. RA, metacarpophalangeal, PIP, knee, elbow and wrist, most common. Small joints, more common. Big joints, knee, elbow and wrist. You can have even involvement of the TM joints, you can have involvement of shoulder, etc. But these are the most common. Traumatic injury, knee, ankle, wrist, elbow and shoulder, most common. And once in a while even a spine. Gout, first metatarsal phalangeal joint, knee joint, ankle joint. Septic arthritis, knee, hip, elbow and ankle. Ankylosing spondylitis, sorry here again spelling mistake, cervical spine and lumbosacral spine. Rheumatic fever, knee, elbow, wrist, most common. And small joints, absolutely rare. Hemophilia, or we call hemarthrosis, again knee joint. So even if you remember disease wise also, you will be able to identify which joints are more commonly involved. So now we are showing you some of the slides which will show you what type of involvement it is. In a RA, you can have lower limb, knee, hip, shoulder, cervical spine and small joints. And in a chronic, you will have a ulnar drift, knuckle swelling, subluxation, wrist subluxation, swan neck deformity, Butenor deformity, Z-shaped deformity, etc. These are all the different types of deformity. This is swan neck. This is Butenor deformity. This is Butenor deformity. And this is a Z-shaped deformity. So that will be there. In an early stage, you will have only arthritis swelling. In an intermediate state, little deformity will be there. In a late stage, ulnar deformity, swan neck deformity, Butenor deformity, jet deformity, all those will be seen. So if you see those deformity, if you see this is Butenor, this is swan neck, and this is arthritis. When you see all those, Butenor deformity, swan neck deformity, this is already a chronic stage which has occurred, and there is a late stage. And in a foot, you can get a cock up toes, hammer toes, etc. These are all the deformities which you can see in a classical example of a rheumatoid arthritis. In a gout, knee and ankle are the most commonly involved and first metatarsal. And you can identify by a gram stain negative, culture negative, and you will be able to see a crystal, sodium monourate crystals will be identifiable in a synovial fluid. So that will be there. You have to rule out septic arthritis whenever you are suspecting a gout. In a osteoarthritis, very easy. Which joint is involved? And we have already given you the difference between osteo and we call infective etiology. We have given that particular difference. Utilize that to differentiate between osteoarthritis and pyogenic arthritis, or we call as an infective etiology. This is a distribution. You can have a lot of other joints, but the most common joint involved is knee. Second common joint which is involved is ankle. So knee is the most common joint involved, and then you can have a small joints, that is DIP joints, we call Herberdens nodes, and in a PIP joint it is Boucher's nodes. So you can have in a first thumb, you can have a first carpometacarpal joints, so that can be involved, and you can have even osteoarthritic changes in cervical spine, lumbar spine. So try to find out which joints are involved. So this is Herberdens node, this is Boucher's node. Boucher's node. In a spondyloarthropathies, first to be involved is a sacroiliac joints, lumbosacral spine and sacral spine. Then you can have involvement of the cervical spine. Peripheral spine are less commonly involved, and you can have involvement of the knee, ankle, hip. That will be common. By and large it is asymmetrical, more of axial, more in lower limbs, very rarely in upper limbs. In upper limbs you will never have involvement in a case of a spondyloarthropathies, and these are seronegative, and very frequently you will have an extra articular signs, very common. So this is the way it is shown. It is mainly axial, and it will be more commonly in lower limb involvement. And extra articular joint involvement, is a very common, very common. This is SLE. We'll be discussing in detail in a further chapters. So this is roughly we have shown you that you will have a joint involvement plus extra articular involvement in the form of a skin, pleural cavity, which we call pericardial cavity, Raynaud's phenomena, weight loss, etc. Hematological disorders, neurological disorders, pericardial effusion, vasculitis, Raynaud's phenomena, kidney involvement, all those can be seen. So if you see a skin involvement, joint involvement, do suspect SL. Now, this is what we call as a traumatic and non-traumatic. In a history of trauma is present in a person who is playing a sport, or there is an accidental injury. It can be hemarthrosis. Commonest joint involved are knee, ankle, elbow, wrist and shoulder, most common, and that is very common in football player, cricket player, tennis player, badminton player. And in a cervical spine, you can get a what we call as a whiplash injury, particularly during roadside accidental injuries. While spontaneous hemarthrosis is very common in a hemophilia, knee joint is involved. In a person with a bleeding disorder, particularly idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, again you can have an involvement of a knee joint, very common. Particularly, you can have a sometimes spontaneous hemarthrosis in a drug induced if a person is thrombolized or person is on an anticoagulants or person is on an antiplatelet. If person is on any one of these treatment, he can have a hemarthrosis. So do keep it in mind, and it can be non-traumatic variety. There are some questions we ask in a person for constitutional symptoms, that is fever, sore throat, weight loss, loss of appetite, diarrhea, urethral discharge, sexual activity, uveitis, etc. Some of this helps you. Say as for example, urethral discharge, that will be very common in Behcet syndromes, gonococcal arthritis, sexual activity, gonococcal arthritis, or sexually transmitted disorders producing arthritis. So try to. Diarrhea, fever, and after 2 or 3 weeks, person develops a joint involvement, Ritter syndromes. So try to look for that. Weight loss, malignancy, tuberculosis, loss of appetite, again, malignancy, and tuberculosis, etc. Extra-articular findings in favor of a seronegative or seropositive groups. Very rare in a case of a osteoarthritis. Almost we say never, never, never in case of a osteoarthritis. So try to ask all these questions. This will be in a step 4. So what we call is the associated features. And also ask a history of drugs. Isoniazid, procainamide, hydralazine can produce SLE, can precipitate SLE. Thiazide diuretic can produce gout because it increases the uric acid level. Chlorthalidone is less likely to produce uric acid level elevation, but hydrochlorothiazide is most common. And another drug, indapamide, once in a while can also produce elevated uric acid level. So in this particular group, try to rule out. Once in a while, quinolones can also produce arthralgia. So do remember, quinolones. Vaccines can sometimes produce arthralgia. Carbamazepine, which is utilized for carbamazepine and phenytoin sodium, is very commonly utilized for epilepsy. That can also produce what we call as a drug-induced lupus. So do keep some of these drugs. If a person is on some of these drugs, can induce lupus. These are all extra-articular manifestation we have. Now these are all the slides which you can undergo. You can have skin, eye, lung, GI tract, oral, kidney, genitals, nails can be involved, and you can go through all these different slides. And we have told you that extra-articular manifestation will be very common in all these groups. Connective tissue disorders, RA, spondyloarthritis, polymyalgia rheumatica, etc. Try to look for all those findings. These are all extra-articular manifestation. Have a pause, go through all. It is very, very long chapter, so I am skipping all these things in between. These are all associated features. Kidney, cardiopulmonary, neurologicals, manifestation, which diseases are common. These are ophthalmological, dermatological, which are the findings and what are the diagnoses. We have got lot of slides. You can go through at your convenient time. Have a pause, look at those particular, if you remember, well and good. These are all the slides which shows you what are the different extra-articular manifestation. Eye involvement, lung involvement, skin involvement. You can see there is a necrosis. This is Raynaud's phenomena. This is skin malar rash. These are skin manifestation. This is eye manifestation in SLE. These are SLE manifestation. You can see this is what we call as skin manifestation and joint, and you will have what we call as a white cheesy material coming out. You can see this tophi. These are tophi. These are all tophi. Clear? You can get on ear. You can get here. These are gouty tophi. This will be in a gout. Very, very classical. This is in a gonococcal. You can have a pustules, small pustules, and you will have a disseminated variety, and you can have a joint involvement. This will be in a reactive arthritis. This is called keratoderma blenorogica. So if you get this type of lesions, it will be in a reactive arthritis. You get a balanitis, very common in case of a reactive arthritis. erythema marginatum in rheumatic fever. In GRA and Still's disease, you can have a rash. In SLE, malar rash. These are also rash over the extensor aspect of what we call as a heads. So it is called interarticular rash. This is keratoderma blennorhagicum. This is erythroderma nodosum, which is very common in rheumatic fever and sarcoidosis. This is again a skin manifestation. This is chest sign in case of SLE. This is around the eye, skin manifestation. These are all necrotic varieties. This is tenosynovitis in GRA. This is dactylitis typical, we call sausage toe in psoriatic. Occasionally in reactive and enteropathic. Enthusiastic, again in case of a seronegative variety. Reactive arthritis, conjunctivitis, episcleritis. Then ulcers, you can get in a case of a reactive arthritis. Skin manifestation like alopecia in SLE. Nail pitting in case of psoriasis. Again nail changes in reactive arthritis. This is eye and nodules. Eye manifestation and rheumatic nodules in case of an extra-articular manifestation of rheumatoid arthritis. This is enteropathic arthritis showing you different types of manifestation. Eye, skin, dental manifestation. This is discoid rash in case of SLE. Oral ulcer again in case of SLE. Alopecia. Raynaud's phenomena in vasculitis. All these different temporal arthritis, periarthritis nodosa. This is a typical type of a rash which is called livedo reticularis rash. This is Kawasaki disease showing you a rash, oral manifestation, eye manifestation, eye, mucocutaneous manifestation, and skin rash. Very common in Kawasaki disease in children. This is again same Kawasaki disease in children. This is Behçet syndrome, genital ulcer, urethritis, and oral ulcer, Behçet syndrome. Herbedens node, Boucher's node. These are Boucher's node. This is Herbedens nodes. So typical in case of osteoarthritis. Clear? This is hallux vulgaris, deformities of the toe, and this is cock up toe, again in case of osteoarthritis. And even you get in a rheumatoid arthritis. Knee joint deformity in osteoarthritis. You can see the deformities. Investigation wise, we have already mentioned. Laboratory investigation, CBC will help you to differentiate pyogenic from non-pyogenic. One important. CRP and ESR will be elevated in inflammatory groups and infective groups. RA test will be positive in seropositive groups. Anti-CCP will be also positive. And in that you can do ACPA, ANA. Now uric acid will be high in case of a gout. ASO titer will be very high in case of a rheumatic fever. And you can go for ANA and ANCA in case of a person who is having seronegative groups. In a seronegative, RA will be negative, anti-CCP will be negative, but ANA will be positive. And then you can go for a HLA typing. X-ray for joints, spine, hip, cervical spine, etc. If you are suspecting inflammatory pathophysiology, arthrocentesis and synovial fluid analysis is a must. In some cases, arthroscopy with synovial biopsy is important. CT scan, MRI and arthrography is required in suspected cases of malignancy, trauma, etc. Radioactive bone scan again is useful in a case of to rule out malignancy. Ultrasound, it is called MSUS, musculoskeletal ultrasound, to rule out extraarticular, articular and inarticular. You can also identify damage which has occurred in a case of what we call as a cartilage damage, traumatic injury, etc. And you can also identify the damage in the joints because of the disease. And these are the list of investigation you can undergo at your leisure time. These are all the different investigations: ESR, CRP, thrombocytosis, hemogram, urine routine examinations, then synovial fluid examination, special investigation, right? RA factor, anti-CCP, HLA-B27, ANA, ANCA. This will be important. These three will be important in a case of a seronegative groups. While other investigation, that is LFT, these are to find out some of the time involvement of the extra-articular involvement. So try to investigate depending upon what is required. So uric acid is required in a case of a gout. RA factor for seropositive groups, RA and anti-CCP, ANA, complement levels, ANCA, etc. in what we call as a seronegative groups, vasculitis groups. Try to investigate that way. There are a lot of other tests which are available. These are all the different tests. You can see that in a person with a positive ANA is very common in SLE, second big group, mixed connective tissue disorders. But see in this rheumatoid arthritis, only in 15 to 30% of the case. While in SLE, ANA is positive. So if you want to differentiate RA seropositive and seronegative, just do RA test. If it is negative, do ANA. You rule out SLE and mixed connective tissue disorders. So this is very, very easy. And you can see here, all other what we call as a seronegative, Sjogren's group, progressive systemic sclerosis, polymyositis, all that, it is highly positive. So ANA test becomes a very useful test. These are all the list of other tests which are available in a case of a SLE. At your leisure time, you can go through those. Radiological changes also I am not doing in detail. We leave it to you. If you are interested, go through those. You will have a joint space involvement, you will have a bone involvement, you will have a cartilage involvement, etc. Depending upon that, soft tissue swelling, erosion, calcification, osteoporosis, narrowing of the joint, deformities, fractures, etc. you can identify by what we call X-rays, radiological studies. There is one peculiarity in osteoarthritis, we call as osteophytes. So if you see osteophytes anytime, it is in favor of osteoarthritis. You can see a joint space is narrowed and you will see a small osteophytes. You will be able to see in this much better. You can see these small osteophytes. So when you see osteophytes, joint space narrowing and sclerosis, these three things together, it is in favor of osteoarthritis. You can go for MRI in a rheumatoid arthritis. You can go for an ultrasound. We usually call musculoskeletal ultrasound, which will help to differentiate extra-articular and articular problems. So it is very, very important, and it is a non-invasive technique. And this is a synovial fluid examination which can be done. And you can differentiate between different groups. Go through this at your leisure time. These are what we do. This is how it looks like in a hemarthrosis. You aspirate the fluid and find out, differentiate hemarthrosis, pyogenic and crystal. You can easily differentiate. This is a difference between normal and septic. What way you differentiate? Mainly by WBC culture and presence of protein. In a septic, count is very high, culture will be positive and protein will be high. We call exudate. While in a normal, count is low, culture will be negative and protein will be normal. So this is the way we try to differentiate. And this is the difference between non-inflammatory, we call osteoarthritis, pyogenic, this is rheumatoid arthritis, and this is pyogenic. So this is the difference. You can go through that, count, culture, crystals, and associated findings. So count wise, in osteoarthritis, we call a non-inflammatory, it is less than 2000. This is inflammatory, it is between 200 to 50,000. You can have sometime increased count. While in a septic, it is always more than 25,000. And if you look at the polymorph, it will be 90% here. In inflammatory, it is more than 50. Culture will be negative in all except in a septic. So culture becomes the most important thing. So don't put them on an antibiotic if you want to rule out septic arthritis, because once you give a antibiotic, this will come negative. So a culture negative does not rule out septic arthritis. So always do a culture first and then put them on an antibiotic. And in a crystal induced, you will have an appearance of a crystal in a synovial fluid. So this is that particular flow charts. At your leisure time, you can go through that. This is the way, this is normal. This is, you can see the change in the color. This is little amount of blood is present. This is inflammatory, inflammatory variety. This is how you differentiate musculoskeletal pain, how you differentiate. So this is one chart which will show you how you differentiate musculoskeletal pain, and this is a joint involvement, this is a bone involvement, this is a tendon involvement. So try to differentiate accordingly. And then this is algorithm showing you musculoskeletal pain and how you approach. So at your leisure time you can go through, because it will become a very long if I go through all this. These are all the flow charts, very easy. If it is acute, what are the possibility? If it is chronic, rule out inflammatory from non-inflammatory. We have already done before. Then non-inflammatory, what are the possibilities? Inflammatory, what are the possibility? Mono, poly, we have done before, but this is again repetition. So this is a revision. This is, you go through slowly. These are very good flow charts, and it will help you a lot to identify osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. What are those? All those you will be able to differentiate: psoriatic, juvenile, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, osteoarthritis, Charcot joint, etc. You will be able to differentiate. And this is another flow charts which tells you symmetrical and asymmetrical, inflammatory and non-inflammatory, and try to differentiate those. So you will be able to differentiate rheumatoid, seronegative, and what we call is the osteoarthritis and atypical osteoarthritis. Go through your at leisure time. 10 golden rules, go through. It is a summary of what we have discussed at present. 10 golden rules. At your leisure time, go through, they are very good. So I end my lecture here. I hope this will be helpful to you, and you will be able to differentiate any person who comes to you with a joint pain or joint involvement.